So it's being passed out right now, along with a position paper I'd like to talk about. But first, if you would turn to page 21 and 22, you will see our Indiana Public Policy agenda for, it's a 2-year public policy agenda, so we are right in the middle of it. So there is really nothing to change. It's been voted on and approved. But if you'd like to review what our current state public policy is, please check out 21 and 22. On the pink sheet that's coming around is my public policy report for this past year. And in it I include a national view, a state view, and a national and state AAUW view. As most of you know, I'm a state employee, so I cannot lobby and do things as maybe past public policy directors have done. However, there is a benefit to that because I really keep an eye on what's going on nationally, but I also keep an eye on what's going on in the state. And I worked on a nice little chart of the legislation that I thought we'd be interested in what passed, and somehow between my office and my car and here, it jumped out, the folder jumped out of my briefcase. I can't find it. So I will put that online or email it to any of you. But let's say the 3 or 4 things that I thought were of most interest to us in the state that passed this year, in addition to all the neat things that went on nationally, in the state, we had ethics reform for legislators and lobbyists that many of us were following. Something of personal interest to me because I work for the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute with domestic violence and sexual assault was the strengthening of our domestic violence legislation. A bill was passed to include teen dating violence in schools, and the person that pushed that was from Plainfield, Indiana, and her daughter was killed in a horrific murder that I'm sure many of you read about. It was her boyfriend that she dated through high school, and he brutally murdered her. And in fact, pieces of the bodies were never found, so they couldn't really have a burial for her. So her mother promoted this bill about teen dating violence, and the schools will have to cover it. And for the teachers out there, I'm sure many of you were glad to see that the Read by 3rd Grade initiative was passed. There is a rule now that there has to be a line drawn if the kids can't read by 3rd grade. Something needs to be done and they intervene ahead of time. A national state AAUW, of course, the restructuring, and Indiana was awarded a $900 Action Impact Grant that I'd like to talk about just a little bit. The 3 things we were going to do on that was to get brochures and do an Indiana insert in that, basically for those of us who will be going around to our colleges and universities. We decided to focus on, I guess what I would call your non-traditional ones, the satellite universities like IU South Bend, IU Richmond, not the big major universities, and also Ivy Tech, because it is a huge growing community college with just a tremendous increase in people. Many of them are non-traditional students, the majority of them are, and we have a contact there with the lady who's the director of student activities across the state, and also the director of their, and I can't remember the name of it, but it is their honors fraternity sorority for those in the honors programs. Those are the people that we want to reach. They're going for associate's degrees, and many will be going on for 4-year degrees, and we want to make them aware of AAUW and the benefits to them, with the underlying theme of what's in it for me, because that's what people are interested in. Not all the great work we do or how we have our state needs, but what's in it for me. So that's what we are preparing to do. And currently we have connections at IU South Bend, IUPUI, Ivy Tech, and Indiana State Terre Haute. The other thing that we're going to do with our Action Impact Grant is to support our 2 trainers that have been trained, our members, Patricia Crouch and Marcia Miller, who have been trained in the Smart Start wage negotiation workshops that you'll be hearing more about. We can pay for their travel, their accommodations overnight and so forth, and we will be doing that. The other thing I wanted to talk with you about is pay equity, and I will keep this very brief. There's a position paper on equal pay as we see it. And as you know, Equal Pay Day, we just celebrated that this past year, but your Indiana board went one step further. I was on some national conversations with other public policy directors and with Seth from the national office, and there were many of your usual activities planned on the payday candy bars and the equal packets and the marching on the State House or meeting with legislators, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, this isn't the right time to do that with so many people unemployed. And I could just see us marching on the circle, walking past a line of unemployed people waiting to file for unemployment, and they're thinking, I'll take your job at 77 cents on the dollar. Let me at it. So I just think equal pay is as important now as ever because more and more women are primary breadwinners. However, we just need to reframe it in a different way. And what we are proposing at the bottom and on the back are that we just broaden our conversation. Equal pay is extremely important, but it's also important that we see women getting into jobs that pay higher wages. A recent report just came out about utilizing our training dollars better. There are federal training dollars that pour into the state. I used to work with them as a director of the displaced worker unit. We would train people who lost their jobs, but guess what kind of training those women went into? Pink collar jobs. We can talk more about this on a Women's Nation. I know it's important, but I wanted you to see our position paper. And one last thing as I'm pulled off the stage, it's too bad Mitzi's not here to celebrate our Title IX victory this past week. Title IX took a back seat during the past 8 years. It's now back in the forefront in the post-Bush arena to ensure that women do get their fair share on campuses.